Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. First of all, would like to say thank you for the opportunity that has been given to us to present one of public diplomacy topic, which is sport diplomacy as derived from public diplomacy. And we are from group 4. And before we jump onto the introduction, I would like to introduce my teammates or my group members. Okay, for the first member, there is Intan Sari Rahayu, Jennifer Putulegiati. The third is Raihan Putra Haikal, and lastly, I myself, Raymond Efremis, and we're gonna be the presenters of the presentation, and we're gonna talk about sport diplomacy. And for the table of contents, first we have the introduction, and then we're gonna move to sport diplomacy as a tool for peace building. And in here we are taking the study case of ping pong diplomacy in 1971 between China and the U.S. And also we're gonna talking about the 2018 Winter Olympics, which highlighting the North and the South Korea sport diplomacy. And after that, we're gonna move to the lesson learned from the study cases, and also the challenges of the sport diplomacy. And lastly is the conclusion. And without further ado, let's jump into the introduction, which will be explained by my friend Raihan.
Sport diplomacy is based on the idea of soft power, a concept introduced by American political scientist Joseph Nye. Soft power explains one half of the carrot and stick in international diplomacy. Hard power approach, such as war, are the stick, where soft power approach attempts to allow nations to gain influence over each other through gentle means of co-option and attraction. Sport is a highly attractive commodity which naturally fits the soft power approach. It is important to remember that the sports star or the team they belong to needs to be attractive to the audience. Attractiveness in sport diplomacy typically means that the athletes and the team demonstrate high level of success and skill, freedom from scandal, and possess similar values to their audience. Soft power works when the message being shared fits the audience. Without this fits, there is no element of attraction. Fans of a nation's sport heroes will travel the globe for a change to see them participate, and high-profile sports stars and teams are often the subject of tourism campaigns. Sport diplomacy as a tool of public diplomacy. Sport diplomacy is a powerful soft power tool in public diplomacy. In the globalization era, military and financial power no longer resolve conflict. Soft power methods that emphasize cultural values like sports are more beneficial. Today, sports are more than this exercise. Sports are no longer just a show or a way to promote a regime or nation. Sports can boost a politician's popularity. Sports aid international diplomacy, as well as representing the government's diplomatic activity. It promotes peace, understanding, and alternative diplomacy. Sport diplomacy is now practiced by all developed and developing nations to promote sportsmanship and peace in sport competition and promote their nation internationality through their athletes. Sport diplomacy is simply using sport tools for diplomacy. Sport diplomacy uses sports media to bridge cultural and national divides. because sport is good media that plays a major role in international relations.
Okay, now we're gonna move to the next topic, which is about sport diplomacy as a tool for peace building. And first, we're gonna explain first about ping pong diplomacy in 1971, and will be followed by the case of the 2018 Winter Olympics. And for the ping pong diplomacy, it will be explained by my friend Intan.
Okay, here I will explain about ping pong diplomacy in 1971. Ping pong diplomacy refers to the exchange of table tennis players between the United States and China in the early 1970s that towards relation between two countries. In 1971, when America table tennis team was visiting to Japan from the World Table Tennis Champions, they was invited to visit China by the Chinese team. And then the invitation was seen as a major breakthrough in U.S. China relation, which has been strained since the communists took over in 1947. And then the U.S. government saw the as an opportunity to open dialogue with China, and President Richard Nixon sent an invitation to National Security Advisor uh, Henry to meeting with the Chinese leader. And then the US table tennis team visit to China was seen as a sign of goodwill and helped faith for the Nikon is historic visit to China in 1972. The visit helped is tension between the two countries leading to establishment of forms U.S.-China diplomacy relation in 1979. Table tennis diplomacy is recognized as a symbol of the power of sport to bring people together and promote peace and understanding between nations. Okay, next, the historical context of the Cold War and the tension between the United States and China at the time. The Cold War was a period of tension and geographical conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union from the end of World War II in 1945 until the early 1990. The United States and its Western allies considered the spread of communism. Communism was a threat to democratic way of life and sought to contain the Soviet Union and its allies. In the 1960s, China was isolated from the international community due to its foreign policy and civil wars, such as Cultural Revolution. In the invitation of Chinese table tennis team to the United States in 1971 and the visit of the American team to China and be considered an important breakthrough in bilateral relations. They present a different from the isolation and politic of reviews holistic and face the way of closer dialogue and cooperation between the United States and China. Okay, next, the role of table tennis as a popular sport in both China and the United States at the time. Table tennis, also known as ping pong, was a popular sport in China and the United States during 1971 table tennis diplomacy. In China, table tennis is considered a national sport and a national symbol, communist ideology. China leader Mao Zedong declared table tennis to be China's national sport in 1953, and the government invested heavily in the development of the sport. The United States table tennis is not as popular other sports such as basketball or soccer, but it is a large following among amateur players and fans. The United States Table Tennis Associate was founded in 1933, and the sport was recognized with the establishment of the Professional Table Tennis Associate in the 1970. The popularity of table tennis in both countries plays an important role of the success of table tennis diplomacy. The Chinese government sees the visit of the US table tennis team as an opportunity to showcase the country's sporting achievement and promote friendly relations between the two countries. Similarly, with the visit China table tennis team to the United States in 1972 raised awareness of the table tennis in the United States and facilitated cultural exchange between the two countries. And then overall, the popularity of table tennis in China and the United States was helped establishment common ground for communication and diplomacy, paving the way for future dialogue and cooperation between the two countries. Okay, so the impact of ping pong diplomacy on US-China relations, including the eventual establishment of formal diplomacy relations in 1979. The ping pong diplomacy has a profound impact on US-China relations, eventually leading of the establishment of formal diplomacy relations between the two countries in 1979. The exchange of table tennis players between the United States and China in 1971 helped break down barriers of distrust of hostility that had existed between the two countries since the communism takeover of China in 1947. The United States table tennis team's visit to China was seen as a sign of goodwill and opened the door of the further communication and dialogue between the two countries. After the U.S. table tennis team's visit, President Richard Nixon sent National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to China to arrange meetings with China's leader, including Mao Zedong. The visit marked a historical breakthrough in US-China relations and paved the way for Nixon's historical visit to China in 1972. Nixon's visit establishment of formal diplomacy relations between the United States and China in 1979 helped transform relations between the two countries. The two countries have become important trading partners, and the United States has recognized the People's Republic of China as a China's legitimate government, ending the crisis of diplomacy isolation. And then, the United States and China are the world's major powers, both economically and politically. And the relationship remains complex and diverse, but the impact of 1971's ping pong diplomacy helped lay the groundwork for building relationships that were increasing important to the establishment and prosperity of the international community.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk about the sport diplomacy in Winter Olympics. And to start the discussion on the sport diplomacy in the Winter Olympics, we have to understand first the tension as the background of North Korea and South Korea national interest through the sport diplomacy in the Winter Olympics, because there is a relation between the North Korea initiative in the Olympic with the geopolitical tension of North and South Korea in the Korean Peninsula. So it's all started in 2017 in which North Korea had conducted several trials of its nuclear program, where they launched intercontinental ballistic missile within a period of months. The missiles were able to travel about 1,000 kilometers and always crashed in the sea, notably especially in the Sea of Japan. Fortunately, it wasn't meant to pose a direct threat to neighboring countries or even the US mainland, yet it's still posing an indirect threat, especially for the South Korea, since North Korea's advancement in nuclear program makes South Korea worry about the security issue, because we know that they are having a long political tension since the division, and the advancement of North Korea's nuclear program might endanger the people of South Korea in the future, might pose a threat in the future. And so for South Korea, their national interest is to build a bridge of peaceful relations with North Korea in order to reduce the tension, which so happened that the 2018 Winter Olympics became a huge opportunity to carry out the peace building relations. And it happened because Kim Jong Un took the initiative first in New Year Day speech. And okay, that's for South Korea. And for the North Korea itself, they took the advantage of the sport diplomacy with different interests. If South Korea want to peaceful the stability of political relation between North and South Korea. North Korea uh, North Korea is a bit different, as it is well known that major states and international organizations such as United Nations Security Council, they are heavily against nuclear weapons program and missile test. That is why also major states have been signed up to the treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, that emphasizing a strict ban on the use and development of nuclear weapons in the international system. However, and for North Korea, that is continuing to develop its nuclear program and carry out the test, they consequently get a range of sanctions by the UN and other countries. That's why Kim Jong Un during his New Year's Day speech in January 2018, he took the initiative to send the delegations to participate in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, and this is a form of sport diplomacy of North Korea, which we are going to analyze a bit further in the next slides. Okay, soon after Kim Jong Un initiative about sending their delegation in the Olympics, a summit was held between North Korea and also the South Korea, and also it was attended by the International Olympics Committee president, and the output of the agreement, they were generated. First important point is the unified flag during the games, and also they were making a unified women's ice hockey team. And this this kind of sport diplomacy is meant to influence public views regarding the symbol of cooperation in achieving peace in the Korean Peninsula. So, for the South Korean itself, this way of sport diplomacy, this output or foreign policy is aiming to advocate for public excitement over peace so that it can attract the willingness of North Korea to coexist without the South Korea worrying about the threat that threatens the stability of the country. Even though the President Moon Jae-in's foreign policy on the unification was majorly opposed by the young generation, but during and after the Olympic Games, the statistics show that the population was more positive toward the peace terms of the two countries. And on the one hand, for the North Korea, as they are often labeled as a country that prone to violate the international norms, the sport diplomacy is a good leverage for showing a goodwill image. It means they wanted to demonstrate to the international community that North Korea is also trying to promote peace, and so by gaining the support of the international community uh, for the reunification in the Winter Olympic Games, they could potentially seek for sanction relief that has been given to North Korea because of due to its nuclear programs. And okay, for the result of or the outcome of the Winter Olympic sport diplomacy of North Korea and South Korea, first, it generated the September 19th Declaration of Pyongyang, in which uh, the two countries expressed their willingness to eliminate the threat in the Korean Peninsula in terms of military and nuclear threat. And the second, it generated an agreement of the Panmunjom Declaration, in which the North and the South Korea cleared out the complex tension as the remnant of the Cold War confrontation. So they settled the peace by committed on military action that it will never happen again in the near future at the Korean Peninsula. However, uh, the question is, are these agreement well enforced, and was North Korea really get the sanction relief? Well, actually, no. The sport diplomacy, because uh, the reality that the sport diplomacy only becomes a temporary way of reducing the tension between North and the South Korea, because afterward, North Korea is still developing its nuclear program, and also the relief sanction for North Korea wasn't really achieved due to North Korea, which still likes to show its disobedience in building stability, and it's reflected through its act in continuing the nuclear program. Yeah, that's pretty much of the sport diplomacy and 2018 Winter Olympics.
Okay, I will explain about the lessons that can be drawn from the examples of ping pong diplomacy and the 2018 Winter Olympics, including the importance of cultural sensitivity, the need for political will, and the potential of sports to serve as a platform for dialogue and cooperation.
I will explain by giving the example from the first is cultural sensitivity is crucial. In both cases, cultural sensitivity played an important role in building trust and fostering cooperation. It is important for both sides to understand and respect each other's culture, values, and norms. And the second is political will is necessary. Without political will, it would be difficult to use sports as a platform for dialogue and cooperation. In the case of ping pong diplomacy, it was the decision of the Chinese government to invite the US table tennis team. Similarly, in the case of the Winter Olympics, it was the result of diplomatic efforts and political will from both North and South Korea. And the third is sports can help break down barriers. Sports have a unique ability to bring people together and break down barriers. By creating a friendly and non-threatening environment, it can foster dialogue and understanding between countries that have experienced tensions or conflict. And the fourth is sports can provide a platform for communication. Sports events can provide a platform for communications between countries, particularly when other channels are closed. In the case of ping pong diplomacy, the US and China were able to communicate directly through the member of the table tennis team. In the case of the Winter Olympics, North and South Korea were able to hold high-level talks on the sidelines of the events. And the fifth is sports can have a lasting impact. The impact of using sports as a platform for dialogue and cooperation can be lasting. In the case of ping pong diplomacy, it paved the way for the normalization of relations between the US and China. In the case of the Winter Olympics, it led to a de-escalation of tensions on the Korean Peninsula. So, from the examples of ping pong diplomacy and the 2018 Winter Olympics demonstrate the potential of support of sports to serve as a platform for dialogue and cooperation between countries. These examples highlight the importance of cultural sensitivity, political will, and the ability of sports to break down barriers and provide a platform for communication. Okay, and for the next, I will explain about the future implications of sport diplomacy, including the potential for the new opportunities and challenges in the context of a changing global landscape. Sport diplomacy has the potential to create new opportunities for international cooperation and dialogue in a changing global landscape. However, it will also face new challenges that must be addressed. Here are some potential implications for the future of sport diplomacy. First, increasing politicization. As sport becomes more politicized, it may become more difficult to use it as a tool for diplomacy. In some cases, countries may use sports events to promote their political agenda or to exert influence over others. And the second is new opportunities for dialogue. Despite challenges, sport diplomacy will continue to offer new opportunities for dialogue and cooperation. With growing global challenges such as climate change and political instability, sports can serve as a platform to bring people and nations together. The third is changing power dynamics. As new countries emerge as sports power, the balance of power in international sports institutions may shift. This may create new challenges but also new opportunities for international cooperation and discussion. And the fourth is increased commercialization. The commercialization of sports may make it more difficult to separate sports from business interests and may limit opportunities for countries that cannot afford to host or compete in major sports events. And the fifth, need for innovative approaches. As challenges and opportunities arise, it will be important to develop innovative approaches to sport diplomacy. This may include new types of sports events such as esports or new types of partnership between government, civil society, and sporting organizations. So, the future of sport diplomacy is complex with potential for new opportunities and challenges in a changing global landscape. It is important for policymakers, sports organizations, and civil society to work together to leverage the potential of sports for promoting international cooperation and dialogue while addressing the challenges that arise. By doing so, sport diplomacy can continue to be a powerful force for positive change in the world.
And so, for the conclusion, sport diplomacy is referring to the use of sport as a means to promote international relations, cooperation among nations, and it certainly can be used to resolve the political tension. The way it works by building an image to show the public a goodwill to pave a good tie or relation with another countries. Ping pong diplomacy, one of the example where the Chinese government used the visit of the U.S. table tennis team to project a positive image of China to the world by showcasing China as a hospitable and friendly nation, willingly to engage with the outside world. Another example is North and South Korea sport diplomacy in the Winter Olympics 2018 that symbolized the peace building through the reunification during the games. It demonstrated the goodwill towards the eyes of international community, notably for the North Korea, which prone to disobey the international norms. And however, the sport diplomacy certainly has certain challenges, notably in the ping pong diplomacy and the Winter Olympics. We can see that sport diplomacy may not be effective because the scope is very limited in the sense that it may not address the specific issues that's causing the political tensions. That's why we can see the tension within China, US, and North South Korea are still present currently in recent news. Yeah, that's pretty much of our presentation. And here is our references in making this presentation about sport diplomacy. And yeah, that's pretty much of our presentation. Thank you so much for the attention, and thank you so much for the opportunity that has been given to us. And hope this presentation will be insightful and will be benefit for broader knowledge. And that's all from group 4. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan.